Welcome to Revenge Room, where every act of betrayal leads to a legendary comeback. If you've ever been pushed too far, humiliated, or underestimated, this story will speak directly to your soul. He slammed me to the bathroom floor in front of everyone, laughed about it the next day like it was a game. That day, I walked away in silence. But what he didn't know, I was coming back for everything. My name is Malik Brooks, and I used to be just another quiet kid at Lincoln Valley High School in Pennsylvania. The type who stayed out of trouble, minded my own business, kept my head down, and just tried to get through the day. I wasn't a nerd, I wasn't a jock, I was just me. I had what you'd call a simple routine. Wake up, bus ride, school, a few classes I hated, one or two teachers I liked, and then straight back home. I wasn't popular, but I wasn't invisible either. I had a small circle, nothing flashy. And honestly, I liked it that way. Then there was Tyree Maxwell. Big, loud, the type of dude who walked into a room and expected everyone to move out of his way. He weighed over 280 pounds, a walking wall of a human. People either feared him or fake laughed at his dumb jokes to stay on his good side. And somehow, I thought he was my friend. We'd joke around sometimes after class, talk about video games, even chill a few times after school. I didn't see him as a threat. If anything, I appreciated having someone like him not messing with me. Maybe I thought that meant he respected me, that I was safe. But I was wrong. So wrong. It was a Thursday afternoon in November, cold outside. School had just ended and the hallways were mostly empty. I was in the bathroom, the one near the science wing, with Tyree. We were just talking, chilling, no tension. At least, that's what I thought. What happened next flipped my entire world upside down. Looking back now, I realize how blind I was. Tyree wasn't my friend. He was just bored, and I was the easiest target in the room. That day in the bathroom, he was standing by the sink, looking at himself in the mirror. We were laughing about some stupid joke from lunch, or maybe I was laughing and he was just watching me. I should have noticed it, that shift in his tone, the way his eyes changed from amusement to something else, something darker. Then, out of nowhere, boom, a fist slammed into my shoulder. Not playful, not funny. It hurt. It sent me stumbling sideways. I turned to him, confused. Yo, what the hell was that? He didn't answer. He just smirked and then hit me again. This time it was harder. My chest, then my back. I tried to block it, but he was too fast and too damn big. Stop playing, I shouted, pushing back. But it wasn't a game to him. He grabbed me by the hoodie, lifted me slightly off balance, and slammed me down onto the cold, nasty tile floor. The impact knocked the wind out of me. The metal of my belt buckle scraped hard against the ground. I remember the sound of my backpack sliding. I remember a weird buzzing in my ears. And I remember someone else in the bathroom. I don't know who, but pulling out their phone and recording. Tyree wasn't done. He got on top of me, straddling my legs. I tried grabbing his thigh, tried to roll to the side, but he was way too heavy. I couldn't move him, couldn't breathe right, couldn't think. Then, after what felt like forever, he stood up, laughing. And just like that, it was over. No explanation, no warning, no reason, just violence. I laid there for a few seconds, stunned. Then I got up, shaky, pissed, humiliated, and walked out of that bathroom without saying a single word. Not to Tyree, not to the kid who recorded it, not to anyone. I just left. But inside, something had changed. When I walked out of that bathroom, my heart wasn't beating normally. It was thundering inside my chest. Every step I took down the hallway felt heavier than the last, like my legs were made of concrete. I kept my head down, not because I was crying, I refused to cry, but because I didn't want anyone to see my face. The redness, the embarrassment, the heat burning through my skin. I didn't have bruises yet, but I could feel them forming. I didn't even go to the bus. I just walked. Out the side doors, past the gym, through the parking lot. I didn't care where I ended up. I just needed air. I needed to breathe. To get away from that place, from the stairs, from that feeling of being small. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, fists clenched, going over every second of what happened. Why did he do it? Why me? And why the hell didn't I fight back harder? The video was already making the rounds. By the time I checked Snapchat, people were sharing it with captions like, "Bro got folded," "Malik got slammed," "Tyree ain't playing for real." Every time I saw it, I wanted to punch my phone through the wall. But I didn't. I couldn't afford to get in trouble over nothing. Instead, I just watched. Again and again. Watching myself get thrown like I was nothing. Watching myself just lay there while people laughed. And that's when the shame turned into something else. Rage. This wasn't going to be another story of a quiet kid who gets bullied and fades into the background. No. I was going to make damn sure that when they told this story again, the ending would be different. Friday morning, Lincoln Valley High smelt like floor wax and gossip. I could hear whispers the minute I pushed through the double doors. Little gasps, muffled laughs, the hiss of lockers slamming shut just long enough for someone to say, "Yo, that's him." I kept walking, eyes forward, jaw locked. Every hallway felt like a tunnel lined with phone screens. By first period, the video had already hit TikTok. 30-second loops of me getting planted on the bathroom tiles, edited with slow-motion sound effects, smack, and some stupid meme song underneath. Views were skyrocketing. My dignity was free-falling. Tyree loved it. Second period, he strolled past my desk with a swagger that said, "I own this place." He tilted his head, put on that fake innocent smile, and whispered loud enough for half the class to hear, "Yo, Malik, you good, lil' bro? Need help getting up?" A couple of kids snickered. My face stayed stone, but inside, magma bubbled. Lunch was worse. Tyree posted up at the center table, his throne, retelling yesterday's highlight reel like an ESPN commentator. "Man, I barely touched him and he fell," he bragged, demonstrating with his hands, making an exaggerated crash sound. Laughter rippled across the cafeteria. Even people who didn't like Tyree laughed, because laughing was safer than being next. I sat 2 tables away, picking at cold pizza, tasting nothing but adrenaline. By 7th period, the buzzing in my skull had morphed into a clear, sharp note. Enough. The bell rang, books closed, backpack zipped. I slid into the hallway, heart pounding but steady, like the click of a metronome, counting down. I spotted Tyree at his locker, still holding court. Boys dapped him up, girls rolled their eyes, teachers pretended they didn't see. I walked straight toward him. No detour, no hesitation. He noticed me, eyebrow arched. "What's up, Malik?" he asked, smirk ready. I stopped an arm's length away, voice calm, but ice cold. "Let's run it again." For a split second, he looked surprised, then amused, like I offered him dessert. "All right," he nodded, toward the restroom by the stairwell. after I hit the John. The hallway buzzed louder, half disbelief, half excitement. A couple of phones popped out. I didn't care. That clip yesterday, it was a trailer. Today, I was dropping the full movie. We walked in silence to the bathroom. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, buzzing like angry bees. Tyree stepped to the urinal, unbothered. I leaned against the far wall, replaying my plan, every muscle vibrating but under control. He finished, strolled to the sink, and turned on the faucet, shoulders big as a linebacker's, water splashing in rhythmic pulses. He lathered, rinsed, shook his hands, reached for the cheap brown paper towels. Then he spun around and found me standing center tile, fists loose, eyes locked on his jaw. I saw the realization dawn in his face. This isn't the same kid I dropped yesterday. My pulse slowed. My vision narrowed. The world reduced itself to 2 square feet of bathroom floor and the arrogant grin about to leave Tyree Maxwell's mouth forever. I inhaled once, deep and even. Time slowed. I could hear the faint hum of the hallway outside, the dripping sink behind him, even the nervous breath I took through my nose. But in my head, it all vanished. There was only Tyree, standing a few feet away, smug as ever, drying his hands with that same arrogance he wore on his face yesterday. He didn't see it coming. The moment he turned toward me with that cocky little smirk, bam! My first punch connected clean with his jaw. I felt it in my knuckles, deep and satisfying, like I just cracked open a door that had been shut too long. His head snapped sideways. No pause. Bam! The second hit came faster, same spot, even harder. This time, his knees bent. He didn't drop all the way, not yet. But his stance faltered. That mountain of a body suddenly looked a little unsure of its balance. His hands went up too late. Instinct, not strategy. I was already on him, closing the gap, throwing punches not just with my fists, but with every ounce of humiliation, anger, and shame I'd swallowed since the day before. I hit him in the ribs, the shoulder, the cheek. Fast, clean, controlled. He backed up, tripping slightly over the base of the sink, grunting. This wasn't a fight anymore. This was payback. Then the moment I was waiting for. He dropped, right down to one knee, one hand clutching his face, the other outstretched, like he was trying to stop me or beg me. But I didn't need to go further. He was done. His nose was bleeding. Red ran down past his lips, over his shirt, dripping on the grimy white tiles. I stepped back. My breathing was loud now. My fists still clenched, but I held them down at my sides. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "This is what happens when you fuck with me, you stupid motherfucker. Don't ever do that shit again." I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I said it low, like truth, so he'd hear it in his nightmares. He didn't say a word. The bathroom was dead silent. The only sound was Tyree's shallow breathing and the slow drip, drip, drip of his blood hitting the tile floor. It wasn't like the movies. No dramatic music, no cheering crowd, just silence. Heavy, suffocating, final. He stayed down, holding his face, blood soaking through the sleeves of his hoodie. His entire posture had changed. The cocky swagger, the arrogance, gone. All that was left was a broken version of the guy who humiliated me just a day ago. And me? I wasn't smiling. I wasn't laughing. I just stood there, breathing hard, staring at what I'd done. For a moment, I felt nothing. Not guilt, not fear. Just power. The kind that comes when someone who thought he owned you realizes you don't belong to anyone. But I knew I couldn't stay. Any second now, someone might walk in. A teacher, a hall monitor, another student with the phone. I glanced at the door. Still closed, still quiet. I turned back to Tyree, who was now sitting against the wall, legs out, head tilted back, trying to stop the bleeding with shaking hands. "Remember this," I told him. "Calm, controlled. I gave you a chance. You made your choice." And then I walked out. No running, no panic. I walked out that door like I owned the school. The hallway was empty. The bell hadn't rung yet. I moved fast but smooth, headed for the back exit near the gym. As I stepped outside, the cold November air slapped me in the face, and it felt good, like a reset, like a purge, like everything ugly from the day before was finally out of my system. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was my brother. "I'm here, front lot. Hurry up." Perfect timing. I jogged across the back of the building, past the dumpsters, through the small cut that led to the parking lot. My backpack thumped against my side. My fist still burned from the impact, but I didn't care. I spotted the car. My brother was leaning over the steering wheel, scrolling through his phone. I yanked open the door, slid in, and said one word: "Drive." He looked over at me, eyebrows raised. "What the hell happened to you?" I didn't answer. He saw the scuffs on my knuckles and just shook his head, smirking. "Damn, yeah, I guess somebody learned not to mess with you." As we pulled out of the lot, I glanced back toward the school. And there he was, Tyree, leaning on the railing just outside the main entrance. One hand still pressed to his nose, the other gripping the rail for support. He looked up, dazed. We locked eyes for just a second. He looked broken. Not just beaten, but changed. And in that moment, I knew something for certain. He'd never lay a hand on me or anyone else like that again. As we pulled away from the school, I leaned my head back against the seat and closed my eyes. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Not because I'd hurt someone, not because I'd finally gotten even, but because I'd taken my power back. The fear was gone. No more replaying that bathroom slam in my head. No more checking my phone with anxiety. No more avoiding eye contact with people who only saw me as a joke. That version of Malik Brooks, the quiet, passive, easy-to-ignore kid, was gone, dead and buried. What replaced him was someone who stood up, who fought back, who made sure his pain wasn't just swallowed and forgotten. Someone who had been tested and didn't break. Power doesn't always come with muscles or loud voices. Sometimes it comes with silence, with discipline, with choosing the right moment. I didn't jump Tyree from behind. I didn't swing when his back was turned. I looked him in the eye, face to face, man to man, and I gave him a taste of his own violence, but with control. I didn't let rage drive me into chaos. I let focus take the wheel. At home that night, I didn't even flinch when my brother asked again, "You really not gonna tell me what went down today?" I looked at him, smirked a little, and said, "Let's just say someone got reminded." He laughed. "Damn, you went that far?" I replied, "Far enough." Then I went to my room, shut the door, and laid on my bed, not with anxiety, but with a full breath. Deep, calm, like the kind you take after a storm passes and you realize your house is still standing. I knew the school wasn't done with it. I knew the video would spread. Hell, there might be consequences waiting around the corner, but in that moment, I didn't care. Because no matter what came next, detention, suspension, phone calls home, I had my dignity back. And that was worth everything. Monday morning hit different. When I walked into school, it wasn't like Friday. There were no laughs, no fingers pointing, no whispers behind my back with smirks and memes. This time, the whispers were different. They weren't mocking me. They were talking about me, about what I did, about how I stood toe-to-toe with Tyree Maxwell and dropped him cold. I heard one guy in the hallway say, "Yo, Malik really ran up on Tyree, like actually dropped him?" Another whispered, "Dude, his nose was bleeding like a faucet, I swear." The rumors were flying, and I liked them. Some said I sucker punched him. Some said we squared up and I beat him fair. Some even said Tyree cried. I didn't confirm anything. I didn't deny anything. I just walked the halls, silent and steady, letting the weight of what happened speak for itself. Tyree, he wasn't at school. Not that day. Not the day after either. People started wondering if he'd gotten suspended or just didn't want to show his face. Honestly, I didn't care either way. That wasn't my concern anymore. Teachers gave me that look, the "we know something happened, but we don't have proof" look. Mr. Cartwright, my history teacher, paused while handing back tests and asked, "Everything all right, Malik?" I nodded. "All good, sir." He stared for a second too long, then kept walking. A couple of people who never spoke to me before started nodding in the halls. One guy even walked up and said, "That was legendary, bro." I just gave him a nod. Inside, I felt everything shifting. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't the guy from the video getting slammed. I was the guy who came back and stood his ground. Tyree's silence, that was the loudest message of all. He didn't post anything, didn't talk trash, didn't deny a thing, because he knew. We both knew. And that quiet understanding, that was the real victory. It was Wednesday when the call came. I had just finished my third period English class when I heard my name echo through the PA system. "Malik Brooks, please report to the principal's office." "Malik Brooks, to the principal's office." My stomach dropped. I'd been expecting it, but somehow hearing it out loud made everything feel real again. The hall went quiet for a second. Heads turned. Some kids raised their eyebrows. A few even looked impressed. I grabbed my bag and walked out, heart steady. Not nervous, not panicked, just ready. The walk to the office felt longer than usual. When I stepped inside, the secretary gave me a polite but knowing smile. "Have a seat, Malik. Principal Reynolds will see you in a moment." I sat down in the stiff leather chair outside his office. Posters about kindness and conflict resolution stared down at me from the walls. Funny how they never meant much until you're sitting there waiting to get punished. After a minute or two, the door opened. "Come in." Principal Reynolds was a tall, serious guy in his 50s with a deep voice and a face that never really changed expression. He didn't look angry. He didn't look friendly either. Just focused. I sat down across from his desk. He didn't say anything for a few seconds, just looked at me. Then he leaned forward, fingers laced together. "Malik," he said slowly, "I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to be honest." I nodded. "Did you assault Tyree Maxwell in the restroom last Friday?" I paused, thought about lying, but what was the point? I looked him in the eye and said, "I defended myself." He didn't flinch. "From what I understand, that's not what happened." I stayed silent. He leaned back, sighing. "We've received reports. No official video surfaced, but multiple students claim there was a confrontation. We also have confirmation that Tyree hasn't returned to school since. That alone raises concern." He stood up and walked to the window. "I've always been a quiet student, Malik. Never caused trouble,
never raised your voice." He turned back to face me. "But this is serious. I should suspend you for this. Maybe worse." He walked back to his desk and tapped a folder. Then he said something I didn't expect. "But I also know Tyree, and I know this school has failed kids like you before, kids who've been provoked, pushed, and then punished when they finally push back." He studied my face. "You're not a bad kid, Malik. You're a good kid who got put in a bad position. But you still made a choice." I swallowed hard. "So here's mine. You're getting 3 days of in-school suspension, no official record, but this ends here. No more fighting. No retaliation. Understood?" I nodded. "Yes, sir." He stood up and offered his hand. I shook it. "You've made your point, loud and clear." As I walked out of that office, something inside me felt lighter. I didn't walk out as a victim. I walked out as someone who stood his ground and survived the consequences.
3 days of in-school suspension sounds like a punishment. To me, it felt like a badge of honor. I spent those days in a silent room, surrounded by kids who had thrown chairs, skipped weeks of class, or cursed out teachers. Compared to them, I was calm, focused. I wasn't there because I lost control. I was there because I took it back. Each day, I sat at my little desk, headphones off, phone confiscated, just thinking. And the truth is, I wasn't thinking about Tyree. I was thinking about me, who I used to be, who I became, and who I wanted to be next. The Malik that walked into that bathroom weeks ago didn't believe in himself. He hoped others would protect him, defend him, stand up for him. But now, I knew how to stand up for myself. The whispers in the hallway never fully stopped, but they changed shape. I wasn't the victim anymore. I wasn't the headline of humiliation. I was the kid who got dropped and then came back with fire in his fists and purpose in his eyes. Even after I returned to regular classes, the legacy lingered. People moved out of my way. Some looked at me with respect, some with fear, and the few, the real ones, with understanding. One guy, Isaiah, came up to me during lunch. He'd never spoken to me before. "Yo," he said, "Tyree jumped my cousin 2 months ago. Never got in trouble for it. What you did, that was for all of us." I didn't respond right away, but I smiled, and I said, "I didn't do it for all of you. I did it for me, but I'm glad it meant something." Because that's what this story became. Not just about a fight, but about self-worth. About not letting someone else write your story for you. About turning pain into power. And you know what the craziest part is? I still don't like fighting. I'm not a tough guy. I'm not trying to act like I'm some street legend. But I'll tell you this, if you ever try to put your hands on me again, if you try to humiliate me, break me, erase me, just remember what happened to Tyree Maxwell. And remember, I'm not the same kid I was. It was the following Monday, exactly 1 week since I'd been called to the principal's office, when something happened I didn't see coming. I was at my locker, switching out my books before lunch, when I noticed someone standing a few feet away. It was Tyree. He looked different. Not just because the swelling on his face had gone down or the bruise near his cheekbone was finally fading. No, it was in the way he stood. The way he didn't puff out his chest like usual. The way his eyes weren't locked on me with arrogance or anger. He looked unsure. I stood up straight, my hand still on the locker door, ready for whatever. He walked closer. I expected him to say something cocky, maybe even throw a threat, but instead he spoke low, barely above a whisper. "Yo, can I talk to you?" I didn't say anything. I just stared at him, waiting. He glanced around and said, "Look, I ain't here to start nothing. I just wanted to say I was out of line. What I did that day in the bathroom, that wasn't cool. I was pissed off over some other stuff, and I took it out on you. You didn't deserve that." I blinked. Was this really happening? He continued. "Yeah, I thought it was funny at first. I thought I looked strong or whatever, but I didn't. I looked like a bully, like a punk." I didn't interrupt. I let him keep talking. "I heard what you did after. Some people said you sucker punched me, but I don't even care. I had it coming. I ain't even mad." He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "So, yeah, I'm sorry." And for the first time since this whole thing started, I didn't feel anger. I felt something else. Relief? Closure? Respect? Maybe all of it. I nodded. "All right." That's all I said. I didn't forgive him right there. I didn't throw my arms around him. But that one word, all right, was more than enough. He nodded back and walked away, leaving me standing there in silence. Sometimes revenge isn't about breaking someone. Sometimes it's about making them face who they've been and watch them change. After Tyree's apology, something strange started happening. Not dramatic, not loud, but noticeable. The energy in the school shifted. People didn't talk about the fight as much anymore. Not because they forgot. Oh no, they remembered. But the story had evolved. It wasn't just Malik got jumped and came back swinging. It was more than that now. People started checking themselves. I noticed it in the hallway when a loud-mouthed kid tried picking on a smaller freshman and one of the football players told him to back off. I saw it in the lunchroom when a group that used to dominate a corner table let some quieter students sit with them. Even the teachers, they weren't so quick to brush off complaints anymore. It was like the whole school realized something. If someone like me, quiet, low profile, Malik, could stand up and shake the walls, then anyone could. Tyree wasn't the only one who changed. So did the people who watched from the sidelines. I started getting nods from students I'd never even spoken to before. Teachers gave me just a little extra respect. Not fear, but recognition. Even security guards, who used to side-eye every hallway conversation, now greeted me like I wasn't a problem. It wasn't about popularity. It was about presence. I wasn't invisible anymore. And the school? It began healing, slowly, quietly. Not because of some assembly or anti-bullying poster, but because someone had taken a stand and refused to be erased. That someone was me. That night, after everything had calmed down, I was sitting on the porch steps outside our house, hoodie on, headphones around my neck, eyes staring out into the dark street. My older brother, Darius, pulled up in his beat-up gray Honda. He'd just gotten off work. He noticed me sitting there and walked over, cracking open a cold soda. Without saying a word, he sat beside me. We just sat in silence for a minute. Crickets chirping, a car driving by in the distance, the soft hum of streetlights above. Then he finally said, "Heard about what happened at school." I looked over at him, unsure if he was going to yell or lecture. But he didn't.
Instead, he sipped his drink and said, "You know, I got jumped once too, back in my junior year." I turned to him, surprised. "For real?" "Yeah," he nodded. 3 guys in the locker room after basketball practice. Took my phone, roughed me up, thought I was weak. "What you do?" I asked. He smiled slightly. "Same thing you did. Waited, watched, came back smart. Got one of them alone, made sure they knew I wasn't scared anymore." We were quiet again. Then he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Listen, Malik, what you did, that took guts. I ain't saying violence is always the answer, but standing up for yourself, that's survival, and I'm proud of you for that." My chest tightened a little. That was the first time in a long time Darius said he was proud of me. You ain't gotta fight everyone, but never let someone take your power. Never let someone make you forget who you are. I nodded slowly, and in that moment, sitting next to the brother who'd always seemed untouchable, I realized we weren't so different after all. We both had battle scars. We both had stories. And now, I had one of my own.
The next few weeks flew by like wind through an open window. Classes continued, teachers handed out pop quizzes, the lunchroom served its usual mystery meat, but I was different. Not louder, not meaner, just more sure of myself. I walked with my shoulders back now. I didn't avoid eye contact. I didn't mumble when my name was called during roll. I wasn't scared to speak up if something didn't feel right. I started to own my space, like I belonged there. And people noticed. Some of the same kids who used to ignore me now said, "What's up?" in the hallway. A couple even asked if I wanted to hang out after school. Not in the fake way, but with genuine respect. It felt strange at first, like I had stepped into someone else's life. But then I realized, no, this was my life. I'd earned it. Even teachers started seeing me differently. My math teacher, Mr. Alvarez, pulled me aside after class one day and said, "I've noticed you've been more focused lately. Keep that energy, Malik. You've got something solid in you." And you know what? For the first time ever, I believed it. I started sketching again too, something I hadn't done since middle school. It used to be a way to escape when the world felt too loud. But now it was my way to tell stories, to express what words couldn't. I even drew a panel based on the bathroom fight. Not violent, just symbolic. A broken mask on the floor, a shadow rising in the mirror. It felt powerful because it was mine. No one could take that from me. Not Tyree, not rumors, not fear. The kid who got slammed on the tile floor, he was gone. And in his place stood someone rebuilt. Not perfect, not bulletproof, but real. It was the last week of the semester when I saw Tyree again. Really saw him. We were both standing outside near the bus loop after school, had my sketchbook in hand, headphones around my neck. He was by the fence with 2 of his friends, laughing at something on his phone. He glanced up and caught me looking. For a second, I thought he'd look away or puff up like he used to, but instead he nodded. A small, respectful nod. And this time, I nodded back. That was it. No words, no fake smiles, just mutual understanding. But inside, I had a message for him. Not one I'd speak aloud, but one I wished he could hear. You tried to break me. You thought I'd stay down. You thought I'd shrink into the walls and disappear. But you were wrong.
You gave me pain, but I turned it into power. You gave me fear, but I transformed it into focus. You gave me a reason to find myself. That fight wasn't just between fists. It was between who I was and who I was becoming. And Tyree, he was part of the story, but not the end of it. I was moving forward, stronger, smarter, with my head high and my steps firm. Because revenge, at its core, isn't always about hurting someone back. Sometimes it's about becoming someone they can never hurt again.
A week later, something unexpected happened. I was scrolling through my phone late at night, half asleep, when I saw a post on Instagram from a student-run school page. It was usually full of memes, football game highlights, and dance announcements. But this time, it was a video. The video. The one from the bathroom. The second fight. It had no caption, just a title in bold white letters. He messed with the wrong kid. I froze. Part of me wanted to throw my phone across the room. The other part? Click play. There I was, clear as day, socking Tyree right in the jaw. The punch echoed against the bathroom tiles. He stumbled, dropped to his knee. My fists followed, my voice raw and furious, yelling words I half forgot I'd even said. It was all there. No filters, no edits. And then the comments started flooding in. This was deserved. Malik really stood up. Respect. Didn't know he had it in him. Sometimes you gotta fight back and far. I should have been scared or embarrassed. But instead, I felt something else. Peace. Because they weren't just seeing the violence, they were seeing the reason, the emotion, the buildup, the turning point. People weren't mocking me, they were listening. And just like that, my story spread. Not through rumors, not through whispers, but through truth. 2 days after the video went viral, I got called down to the counselor's office. Now, usually that's not a place anyone wants to go. Most kids walk in nervous and walk out with a suspension slip or worse. But I wasn't scared this time. I walked in with steady steps. Miss Robinson, the school counselor, was sitting behind her desk, glasses on, a soft smile on her face. "Hey, Malik," she said gently, "take a seat." I sat down, unsure what was coming. Was she going to punish me, reprimand me for fighting, pull up the code of conduct and start quoting rules? She didn't. Instead, she said, "I saw the video." My chest tightened. I stayed quiet. But then she added, "And I saw someone who'd clearly been holding in a lot for a long time." That surprised me. She leaned forward, resting her elbows on the desk. "What happened with Tyree, that wasn't just about one moment, was it?" I shook my head slowly. "I figured," she nodded. "Look, I'm not here to punish you. There's already been enough of that in your world, hasn't there?" I looked up at her, trying not to let emotion rise to my throat. She said, "I want to help. Not because I think you're broken, but because I think you're strong, and strength needs direction." She handed me a pamphlet, Creative Youth Mentorship Program, something about art, expression, mental health, and leadership. "I've seen your sketches," she added with a smile. "You've got something special, Malik. Let's build on that, instead of letting anger consume it."
That was the first time an adult in school didn't treat me like a problem, but like potential. The semester ended with the usual chaos. Lockers slamming, yearbooks flying, friends hugging like they'd never see each other again, even though most would in a couple months. I stayed a little longer that day after the final bell. I walked the halls, not as a victim, not even as the kid who fought back, but as someone who had survived and grown. I stopped by the bathroom one last time, the same one where everything went down. The place was quiet now, clean, empty. No punches, no blood. Just flickering fluorescent lights and the sound of a dripping faucet. I looked into the mirror, not at my clothes, not at my bruises, they were long gone, but at me. And I smiled, because I saw someone who had been knocked down, but didn't stay there. Someone who had faced fear and found his voice. Someone who didn't let the worst moment define him, but used it as fuel to become better. That bathroom didn't just witness a fight. It witnessed a transformation. And now, walking out of it for the last time that school year, I knew one thing for sure. Tyree may have started the fire, but I rose from the ashes. When people hear the word revenge, they think of pain, of getting even, of making someone hurt as badly as they hurt you. But that's not what this was about. Not really. Yes, I fought back. Yes, I stood my ground. Yes, I made Tyree bleed. But the real revenge wasn't the fists. It wasn't the video. It wasn't even the nod he gave me after. The real revenge was living better, walking through that school with confidence, getting noticed from my strength, not my silence, drawing again, smiling without fear, being me without apology. Tyree, he faded. No one talked about him much after that. He stopped trying to intimidate people. Maybe he learned, maybe not. But I learned everything I needed to. I learned that the real power comes after the fight, in the choices you make once the dust settles. I didn't need to be feared. I needed to be respected, starting with myself. So if you're reading this or hearing this, and you've ever felt like the world was against you, like someone knocked you down and dared you to stay there, let this be your message. You don't have to stay broken. You don't have to let them win. You can rise. You can fight. And most importantly, you can heal. This was my story, my fight, my revenge. But yours? Yours can be even greater. This was Revenge Room, where true stories of pain turn into powerful transformations. Got a story you want us to tell? Drop your title or idea in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, because your revenge might be next. Until then, stay strong.